Yeah. All right, what I want to look at today is, this lecture took me a while, it just wouldn't come together for some reason, but I hope it has now. So we're looking at social and economic inequality, and we've already seen that most societies engage in some form of social stratification, right? They have a high, they have a low. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this, I want to look at it, your textbook looks a lot at other cultures. We're going to pull in some of the sociology stuff and go, what's happening psychologically? So one of the distinctions we need to make is between income and wealth. So what's this distinction? Anyone take an economics or a chapter?
What's the difference
Between income and wealth. These are two separate terms.
Income is the amount of money you make, wealth is the amount of money that you have accrued as the whole.
So it's like so wealth includes, if you have a car, that's part of your assets. Land would be part of, it's part of wealth, but income is what's your salary, basically. And so we have to decide whether or not, which one of these are we most concerned about, income or wealth. So we can talk about absolute wealth, and of course this is how much absolute wealth you have. I have, as a college professor, negative $150,000 in wealth. Yeah, they're my student loans. I'm like, wow, that's an amazing number that hopefully, man, I don't know.
Hope you win the lottery soon.
Hope I win the lottery soon, that's right, you know. I'm like, wow, so my net wealth is actually negative. You'd think I'd take better care of my head, too. But anyway, that's absolute wealth. You can also talk about relative wealth. What would this term be? The absolute is how much absolute savings, car, land, etc. I have. What might relative be?
Compared to others?
Compared to others. So with this, we compare to what's available, we compare to what others have. So in this sense, instead of going, I have an absolute, $500,000, I look at my neighbors and I go, they have negative 120,000, so I'm better off than them. Right? And the same thing can be done with income. We can deal with relative and absolute income too. So one issue here is what we're going to be most interested in, income or wealth. And wealth tends to be a number that we need to have, a term that is most often used in this area, because it's when they talk about the disparity, it's between this wealth issue. Those who have the money tend to keep making more of it. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. So that's where we're going to look at some issues here. So apologize, Alex, but it's down some so I can see this. So most people focus on relative income and relative wealth, and the reason is because these things vary over time. And I don't know why, but this example has always stood out for me. I think every time I use an aluminum can, I think about this. That at one time, aluminum was more precious than gold. Because the way aluminum has to be mined from the earth, it's a very common element. Like it's the third common element, is that true? Any chemist? Like, sure, all right, I'll say it's the third. Why not? No one's here to dispute that. No, I'm going to get an email. It's not the third, it's the fourth. But it's one of the, let's say top 10 there, I'm certain it's top 10 common element on the planet. But the way it is bound to other elements, you have to use a lot of electricity to free aluminum out. And at one time it was more valuable than gold. And this is a dinner set from Napoleon III. And it's aluminum, gold, and silver. And he proudly put this on his tables. What we would think now is kitschy, because it's made of aluminum. Like, this was like showing his height of wealth. So I always love this example, because it's like, it really is relative. So at these particular parties, the lowers of rank had to settle for gold. For them. Just think about the rich, the wealthiest, best ones are eating on aluminum. Well, we're like, really, seriously, aluminum? All right, so it seems that most people use relative. And we can get other reasons for this relative focus. Think about, let's go back 2,000 years, and you want to send a letter from here. Here wasn't here, well, it was here, there were people here, but as you're a Native American, so we'll just stay here. What Indian tribe was here? Cherokee? All right, they didn't actually have an alphabet until that guy, I can't remember his name, right? So they can't send letters. But let's say they're going to send a message. There you go. I can just tell them not to make war or whatever, or tell them the corn is grown. Right? How fast will this message travel? Like, how long would it take to get, say, from here to Atlanta? We could walk. Well, horses aren't native to America, but if you were to think, if you were in the Roman Empire, you would have horses, right? So it might be as fast as a horse could go, you know, during the course of a day. So you start figuring this out, and you go, but there was an average amount of time it took for information to travel, right? Even the Pony Express, it took 10 days to get from, what was it, St. Louis to California, or Missouri to California. All right, so when you sent a message, you knew there was going to be a delay. I remember when I was, y'all probably never ever did this. I used to have someone that I wrote letters to every Wednesday, and I'd get a letter back from her on Tuesday, and I'd write a letter again on Wednesday.
We had a pen pal,
like a pen pal. But you know, pen, no one knows what this word means, you know. Pen, what's this pen word you keep using? Right? Like a pen pal, right? And so like, I didn't expect to hear from her. You know, I knew it would always be a week. But now, cell phones, text messaging, Facebook, right? I send a text message and I can get to someone in California in what amount of time?
3 seconds.
Yeah, you know, pretty much instantaneous for all that matters, right? Do you think that's changed my view of how fast communication should take place? Yeah.
I have a prime example. With printers today, you think technology has gotten to the point where you could have it like, exact, but they're still old computers, and you forget, you have these really old computers. And so they just take all this time. It's like 5 minutes for something on. And you're just like, oh, this normally takes like 2 seconds. And
when it takes 5 minutes, you're like, I cannot believe that. Did any of you ever type on a typewriter?
I did once.
Yeah, I mean, but it's like, think about when you wrote papers on a typewriter and you made mistakes, and you had extensive editing, guess how you had to get another copy of the paper? You had to retype the whole thing. If you just had 1 or 2 changes, but if you had like wholesale revisions, you had to retype the whole thing. I remember the early word processors, and it was like, oh, sweet. All right, but you start thinking that, you know, material culture obviously feeds into social culture, right? If no one had a cell phone, would cell phones be seen as obligatory? No, obviously not, right? Because if no one has a cell phone, you can't really say, well, you need a cell phone to survive. I mean, there are like 3rd graders getting cell phones now. Kindergarten. You start thinking to yourself, well, how do we even determine, does a kindergartner need a cell phone?
It was like 4 buttons. Yeah, where they can call home, call home.
So they only allow four numbers.
Yeah, and it's like pre-programmed, so that it's stored like in
You like press one, and
like
that's
if
home.
they're latchkey kids, they can, you know,
Okay.
It's a protective reason.
Yeah, but also allows you to monitor where the kid is. You start thinking, is that a good idea? I don't know. But anyway, so obviously we're going to use relative, not absolute in many of these situations. So it's no surprise that people tend to use relative measures, right? How well am I doing compared to my neighbors? Right? We use an expression, keeping up with the Joneses, because we want to know how well we're doing relative to those. So, okay, so we're going to look at relative wealth and relative income. Give you some idea of how the wealth is distributed throughout the world. The poorest 50% of our planet have under 2,200, and actually, I guess I would technically qualify as the poorest 50%, though I don't feel that way. Right, because I have negative wealth. My liabilities are huge. Right, I do. This is a real problem with student loans. Like, it is a real issue.
No. Yeah.
Not just me, but
deal with.
You go to college, get a better life, but then you have all this debt and it's
So
retarded.
you just stay in the same spot.
Yeah, you don't move.
You earn more money to pay the debt that you used to earn more
Well,
money.
what about if you go to school for 3 years and then drop out, but you've taken loans, you're actually worse off than you
Yes,
were.
you are.
Well, I have, what is it, almost $80,000 in debt just for my undergrad, because I pay out-of-state tuition here.
Still?
Still,
Wow.
because I graduated this year and I've waited 2 years since I've been here, so I did not count. So now I graduate with, so it's $80,000 just for a degree in sociology.
And, you know, obviously I love sociology, but do you think most careers in sociology are going to let you pay? $80,000 is roughly the price of my house.
Yeah, no.
I don't live in a very rich house, as you can imagine, for $80,000.
Yeah.
I mean, it has 4 walls, a roof, you know, it does the job. Here's the income distribution in America. I believe this is a couple of years old, but to give you a flavor of our income distribution. The median income, that's obviously the number in the numerical middle. I believe that's a little low for modern median income. Your textbook gives a value of $59,000 and change.
That's the average salary.
Well, remember there are 3 ways to think of average. So what are those 3 ways? What's mean, median, mode.
Oh, I thought you were talking about like wealth.
No. Okay, so no, mean, median, mode. So you have the mode is the number that occurs the most times.
Yeah.
The median is the number in the sequential middle, and the average is you take everybody's salary and you divide by the total number of people. Which one for income might be the best measure of?
No, it's not going to be the median.
You know,
I would say the move.
It's going to have.
well, let's see. I don't know. Which do you think for income is going to be the best? You have mean, median, and mode.
And this is just income, salary.
Yeah, for salary, which do you think is going to be the best measure for the central tendency? Let's go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Someone do his joint. Awesome. Thanks for being here. Y'all are all over the spectrum for this one. You know what's most intriguing is actually the best answer was the least one chosen. Sounds like a really good test question. Okay, so